excited to be with you today. I have a wonderful guest. Her name is Rebecca Russell. She's an essential oil expert. She's an author and speaker who knows what it means to choose your heart. That's in quotations there. Choose your heart. For over 25 years, she's focused on living a holistic lifestyle. And get this, in order to fight a predicted diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. And she's winning that battle. So, Rebecca, welcome to Healthy Living, Happy Life podcast. I'm so excited that you are here because your story is amazing. It is one of those things that, until you hear what you've done and how you've done it, people could just go, oh, my family genes, this is what it is, and kind of just be okay with that. But you've taken your health into your own hands, and that is truly an amazing feat, and something that I believe that more people need to hear, that they can take control of their own health and wellness. So tell us a little bit about your story and how you got interested in doTERRA essential oils.
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me. I am very humbled and honored. And I never intended to have a business. That was never a dream of mine, but God laughs while you have plans. So at 58, I started a wellness company. But to backtrack on that, we just align what you do, what I do, align so well because at 35 or around there, being diagnosed as pre-diabetic and then being told that you're going to die a diabetic. I mean, literally said that. But it just depends on, it depends on when I become a diabetic based on whether or not I start taking the recommended medications. It'll be maybe when I'm 80. If I don't take the recommended medications, it'll be within 5 years. And he would not let me leave the office without the prescription. And so on my way out, I threw it in the trash and went to see my doctor of Oriental medicine. We were raising our family in Dallas at the time. And it's a lot more progressive there. We're in Tennessee now, and I'm from Ohio. So neither of those places are that progressive, but fortunately I was in that place. And it's incredible. It was like my second entry into the holistic world. The first was a chiropractor. When I was pregnant with my first child, I was working full time, and the only health concern I had from a kid on was headaches and migraines. And
I can
being
relate to
pregnant
those.
and working, of course, migraines came up, and they wanted to give me Tylenol with codeine and assured me it would not hurt the baby. I'm like, I don't know how that's possible. And aside from that, you're not even supposed to drive when you're taking this, let alone be able to work and have a clear head. And you're pregnant. So I just said no. And a friend of mine, and remember, I'm 66. So back then, chiropractors were not the norm. And a friend of mine went to one for her TMJ, and she said, why not try it? It's helped me. So I was very skeptical, but desperate. So I went, and he ended up being amazing. I learned more about my body, how it originates versus what I thought. I thought where the pain started was where the migraine started, and that's not true. It was, neck and shoulder pain that would then radiate up behind my eye, usually the left eye. And once I understood that, if I could get to him before it went further, I could avoid the migraine. So that was my first little tiptoe into, well, it was big, into the holistic world, where root cause.
Yeah.
And so I was open to trying to figure out another way for the diabetes, because growing up in a family where you see your mom and your aunts, their health go down once they start that path of medications. My mom and the one aunt I think they all were diagnosed in their 40s.
Wow, that's
And
young.
then another aunt had lupus, so another autoimmune.
Right.
But three of the four sisters smoked. They were all sedentary, and they had food addiction. And three of the four struggled with weight their whole lives. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the one who never smoked and didn't have a weight issue growing up is the one that lived the longest. But she did still end up with type 2 diabetes in her 40s. And she had a terrible quality of life, at least 10 years before she died. And so watching this was very painful.
Yeah.
And I was just determined that I was not, I didn't see how the medication served them. I didn't understand all the science, but it was like, if that's what that gets me, I don't want it. I'm
Right.
going to try something else. And honestly, in their defense, there was nothing else available at the time. And that
That's true.
generation sort of treated doctors like gods and all that. So I'm not judging anyone. I'm just sad that I couldn't help them. But being the daughter or the niece, I'm not sure they would have listened anyway. But it's a big part of my why now is I couldn't help them, but I want to help anyone who is open to listen, that you do not have to be a victim to your genes. And so watching them, my mom died at 69, my one aunt at 60.
Wow.
The other was with lupus was, I think, in her early 70s. And then the one that lived the longest just passed away a year ago, and she was 78. But again, at least the last 10 years was horrible. Hospital, rehab, home for a little bit, and then something would put them back in that spiral. And it was very hard to watch. And so I went to the doctor of Oriental Medicine, showed her my labs, and she just shook her head. She said, "Your cholesterol's high because your thyroid's off." So no, the family doctor didn't mention that. The endocrinologist didn't mention that. And I'm like, huh. So she said, give me time to, I've got some quality supplements here. Give me time to figure out. It's not an exact science. Everyone's different, but I can get your thyroid balanced and then your cholesterol will be fine. So that, when you think about it, that had nothing to do with genes, nothing to do really with my diet, which wasn't great, but I didn't have food addiction. So I did have that going for me. So she said I ate too much dairy, but other than that, I cut down that a little bit, but I mean, it was minor. But I was active, never smoked, and never had a weight issue. So those were in my favor. But I was younger than them getting diagnosed. Now, was that because I was very proactive? So they could have had it, and they probably did have it earlier and didn't go till they passed out, literally.
Right.
So it probably is because I was proactive. But I'm thinking, well, it's definitely, there's a genetic component because of me trying to do all the right things and still getting that diagnosis. But I don't want to be a victim to anything. So it was that I never went there. And so
that's important. That's really important. There's a couple of things that I want to stop you there for a second. There's a couple of things that you've said that I want to just touch on again. Genetics, yes, we know that there is always a component of that. And there's such a huge study in epigenetics, and it really is, you have the ability to kind of turn on or turn off those genes, and it is being proactive. So you took all those steps to make sure those genes never really got turned on. The other thing I wanted to mention, because I think this piece is really important, was about the thyroid. You said your general practitioner didn't mention it. The endocrinologist didn't mention it. And I think it's important for people to understand the reason why, more than likely, is you fell in the normal range.
Yes.
Whatever they've decided normal is, if you're within that range, they just kind of go, okay, you're fine. And we know that each of us is a complete individual. And normal for you is not going to be the same normal for me. Because I've actually had a similar conversation with the doctor and a functional medicine doctor, where my thyroid, because my mother has underactive thyroid, so does two of her sisters. And the conversation she and I had at one point was, well, as you get older, it's just something that you have to deal with. And she's of that generation, like you mentioned, with your mom and your family, your aunts. They all just kind of go to the doctor and go, oh, okay, and don't do the research and don't really understand what is happening. So I think that's really an important piece to mention, but also again to reiterate how proactive you were in this whole journey.
Oh yeah, I was furious with that doctor. I was like, how dare you try to take my hope away? I mean, and lumping me with everyone else, like that that just I'm grateful now because it did spur me on, but I had to do a lot of healing around that because I was angry. And also part of me, I'm human. I want to hunt him down and tell him how wrong he was. But I've let all
You
that
were so
go. I've
wrong.
healed. I've healed. But that took some work. But yeah, and my numbers, they must have been within the normal range, but she saw something and she was like, no, this is not good. So we tried several different supplements, and of course none of this was covered under insurance.
Of course. Mhm.
And then the supplements are not cheap. And so we'd try one, we'd check again with the blood labs to see what was going on, and that didn't work. So you just throw it away basically, and you try a new one. And my husband at one point was, are you sure? And I said, I'm in or out. And I'm not going the other way. So I'm going to see this through.
Mhm.
And fortunately, we had the finances to do this, but I probably would have found a way no matter what. I'm from a family, a long line of strong willed women, and I am tenacious. I am a learner. And I've been labeled different my whole life. I just don't think like everyone in my little family in town. And I'm just an outlier, I guess. But anyway,
No, you're a
um,
unique individual, Rebecca.
well, and I don't accept things just because they don't say I told you so. That does not work with me. So I question things. I'm very contrary. I don't purposely want to cause trouble or break rules, but if it does not make sense to me, I'm not just going to swallow it. So
Literally.
yes. So just followed her advice and was taking a ton of supplements. And lo and behold, about 6 months later, cholesterol was fine. And so I did that for another 3 months, and I got a little cocky and thought, well, I made these changes. These are expensive. Maybe I don't need them now. And so I went off them and had my labs checked, and the numbers went right back up.
Aha.
So I determined that now, remember, the average person only gets blood work done once a year, if that.
If that.
So I, again, was very proactive. I want to know, I want data. And so when I saw that that did not work, okay, then this is my medicine. Yes, it's expensive. Quality supplements are expensive,
Mhm. They are.
but it worked for me.
Mhm.
And so instead of watching, like my mom, I'd watch her fill her pill tray and full of all her meds. I'm filling up my supplement tray. And I'm okay with that because it's not going to have those side effects. It's helping me. And so I think that was a huge piece of me at a fairly young age understanding the value of quality supplements. And
That's really important because most people don't understand that. They think, oh, I need a magnesium supplement. I'll go to Walmart and buy whatever they can. Oh, this one's on sale for $8. And they think that's okay. But they don't understand is what is actually in the supplement or what's missing from the supplement. I think
right.
that's a key component as well.
Yeah, yeah. And so that was a huge blessing that I got that lesson early. And it's also a blessing that I'm a learner. I love to learn on the subject I want to learn.
Mhm.
So I was always researching and fine tuning. And, as things would come out, and remember back then, the internet was just sort of coming around. So it
Mhm.
wasn't as easy as it is now. But I would go to the library. I would see the articles at my uh, doctor of oriental medicine. I would see it at the chiropractor, a different kind of information. And I would research. And so I learned about the glycemic index
Mhm.
from the South Beach diet.
Sure.
And the reason I went on that wasn't weight, because weight was never an issue for me. And I stayed active after, throughout. Um, it was this sweet tooth. It was out of control.
Ah,
And
okay.
so I was like, well, that's not good with the pre-diabetes thing. No, no, no. So I need to
Mhm.
figure this out. So I found this book that really explained not the glycemic. At first, I was going by the glycemic index because that's all that was out. And so I didn't eat any carrots. I didn't eat, certain things that were high
That's
glycemic.
the one half.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
so then with the South Beach, I think that was when I realized there's the glycemic load.
Yes.
And so that was another piece of the puzzle. And that helped me understand that when I did figure out I had a gluten sensitivity, your first instinct is to just grab all the gluten-free food you can. But as I'm looking at the ingredients, I'm going, whoa, wait a minute. Look at all these starches. Look at all this added sugar. This is not good for someone who needs to watch that. So it was very like a domino effect of as I was learning things, I was putting pieces together that, was sort of uh, against the popular movement. And yes, I ate gluten-free food, but I also was always researching what's the glycemic load and, that kind of thing. So I have many friends who don't understand that and they're fixated on the gluten and they are so unhealthy. They are putting on weight and they just won't listen, and everyone has their own journey. They can figure it out
So
or
true.
not or come to me, whatever, but they are so keyed in on gluten free that they're not understanding, again, like you were saying, what's in it,
Right.
what's taking the place of that gluten, and is that serving you?
Right.
And so
It's very much the same situation as when we went through that whole fat free craze. Everything was fat free. Well, what were they adding to replace the flavor and the satiety that the fat that they had taken out actually provided? A lot of sugar, which of course, again, for pre-diabetes is not good for anyone. That's not
no,
good. And so many different, this is really when I started to see the artificial um, ingredients really start to pop up. And so very similarly, fat-free, gluten-free. I mean, I always think it's funny. You go to the supermarket and you have, there's a label on, I don't know, a piece of steak, gluten-free steak. Duh. People don't actually understand what gluten is and how it affects your body. Do you want to just touch on that? What gluten really is?
I mean, I'm not one that goes deep into science as far as, this is a I am not deep in science.
Okay, no,
I
that's
am
fine. I think it's
more, I'm more like I love simple things. Like one guy on YouTube was saying, love the foods that love you back.
Mhm.
And I thought, man, that is so simple. That is brilliant.
I love that.
And I've adopted that. So I can't really tell you the cellular process with the gluten, but I do know that it is not good for us. It tears up your digestion, but there's another side to it. You have to look at the whole picture. And again, if you eat real food, you're not going to have that issue typically.
Absolutely.
So, but it's interesting how I only found the oils 10 years ago. And up until that point, I was on this journey pretty much alone. It was very hard, but I'm very tenacious. So I did not give up, whereas the average person probably would have.
Absolutely. They would have given up and the,
Oh, yeah.
gluten-free packaged stuff they'd have been fine with that.
And played the victim card,
Yep.
it's in my genes. I just wouldn't do that. So, and other health issues came into play and such, but um, through the years, that made me question doctors and their authority and their knowledge and unnecessary surgery and some other things. But I think knowing that each year, as long as I was on those quality supplements and lifestyle changes, you cannot rely on anything by itself like that. I firmly believe.
I would agree.
So I was learning which, we didn't understand all the artificial sweeteners at first. I used to drink Diet Coke thinking that's better than the other,
Right.
full sugar. I used to think Splenda was fine. So there's this evolving of learning as you go. You don't know what you don't know. And then I would make adjustments. So slowly I was getting rid of the white flour, the white sugar. That's the South Beach really helped me on that. Honestly, the South Beach thing, I lost maybe 6 pounds because I really didn't need to lose. But what it taught me was my super sensitivity to carbs, the bad carbs, starches, basically.
Mhm.
And I was bloated from a 20 years old on all the time. And sometimes so severe it hurt. I
Yeah,
would look
that's
like
not
that
fun.
Ethiopian,
Oh, with
you
the
know,
extended belly.
down to 109 pounds, which is not good. Um,
Wow.
and not understanding, just a pat on the back from the gastroenterologist saying, "Oh, you have a little pooch like my wife. She doesn't like hers either." You know,
Oh my
yeah.
goodness. A little
Uh,
patronizing.
Yes. So no answers. And honestly, what saved me there, because I was so miserable and I never knew what was going to make it so bad. Believe me, too skinny is not healthy. And I had the first sense of what anorexia was probably like, because it plays with
Interesting.
your head.
Yeah.
When you start losing weight like that, and you're going down in sizes and oh, I'm down to this. Well, I bet I could get down to this one. I've never been there, and it's frightening. What saved me was I got pregnant with my first child, and that took the emphasis off
Mhm.
me obsessing, and it somehow
Right.
alleviated the stomach issues. And so, but the South Beach thing was years later. And that 2 weeks where you have zero carbs,
Mm,
no sugar whatsoever, no fruit, was the first time in my adult life I was not bloated.
amazing.
And it did help
Amazing.
with the cravings.
Mhm.
So that was sort of my first, another sort of aha moment of it's not all in my head. there is this connection to what I'm eating.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, the brain, your second brain is in your gut. People think, oh, they'll whatever they eat, it doesn't really matter if they don't have indigestion or any particular problem, that whatever they're eating is fine. But they don't realize that they really are affecting so many things in their body. Yes, their brain. I mean, we know this, blood, not blood brain barrier, the second brain with the gut and gut health. We are finding more and more. I mean, there's so much research now that people with better gut health actually have a less risk of dementia and Alzheimer's disease.
Right.
And this has to do with what we're eating. So
Yeah. Yeah.
amazing. So tell me now, when did the essential oils come into play and how did they kind of take you to that next level?
So at 58, I had beaten the diabetes diagnosis that long. The main, I still had migraines,
Okay.
no headaches anymore, but I still had migraines probably every other month.
Mhm.
And still had an issue with sleep. Once I became a parent, the worry, and then the I started writing, and so the creativity was part of that. And I had a hard time, I call it racing brain, turning my brain off. And so I ended up, as much as I hated it because I wasn't on any other medications, I ended up on a medication for sleep because you got to sleep. And if I
Sleep.
didn't, that was a catalyst for the migraines. So
Mm.
it was, I did not like that. And I was, and I, fortunately, I had year-round allergies down there, but um, Dr. Iva, the doctor of Oriental medicine, she did a treatment called NAET. It's non-invasive. It's a really cool thing, and was able to alleviate that issue. So I'm no longer on the Sudafed every day, twice a day, or the Claritin or any of that. So yay. So
Yay.
fewer migraines, but I still had them.
Mm.
And so, and nothing helped with the sleep. So when I moved here to Tennessee at 57, I guess, um, I was put into a panic because I did not know it was considered the drug capital of the East here.
Oh,
And no doctor would prescribe that for me. So, and I'm going, seriously, look at me. Am I your typical drug addict? I mean, come on. I'll give you my records. What's the problem? But it is such a problem here. They didn't want the red tape. They didn't want none of that. And so then I start panicking, thinking, well, am I going to have to fly to Dallas twice a year to get my prescription? What am I going to do? Then am I really an addict because I have to have it? It was awful. And I was working full time at an office, and one of the gals there sold the oils, and they all knew I was holistic. And so she came to me one day and she said, I know that you're holistic. Would you be open to trying essential oils for sleep? And I'm like, well, yes. And I don't know how that escaped my attention. I knew of them, but I just was never around anyone that used them. And I try not to fall into those gimmicks. And so she, uh, sampled me. It took a while again, it's not a one size fits all. And it took a while to figure out the right mix. And then her mother-in-law came to teach a class. And of course, I'm there because I want to learn. I was probably the easiest sell ever because I was already on board with holistic.
right.
And this woman starts out her presentation saying she used to have type 2 diabetes and she
Huh.
doesn't have it anymore. Now, this is 10 years ago.
Right.
So that
Huh.
was not in the conversation back then. It is
Right.
now, but it was not talked about. So she's got my attention right away. Then she talks about the heart of doTERRA, which I thought I'd be a social worker or a teacher growing up my whole life and didn't. And when she starts talking about how they dig wells and they, you know, build schools, and it's like, oh my gosh, I love the heart of this company. Um, Going to the poorest of regions and helping the farmers provide for their families. I mean, that had me. And I literally, as I'm sitting there listening to her, I had this vision of me teaching a class, even though I really knew next to nothing about them. And
Mhm.
I'm immediately, no, 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 no. I'm not looking for anything. I'm already tired working this full-time job. No, I'm happy to be a customer.
Mhm.
And I could never know what she knows. She's just, rattling off all these stats and information. And it just was like, there's no way. Now, public speaking, that's not hard for me. I was a lectern at church as a kid, and that just never bothered me. But what if it's something I don't know anything about, then that is not something you would
Sure.
pursue.
That's scary. I do want to
Yeah.
stop you for a quick second because we're talking about the oils and we're talking about essential oils. Just for anyone who's not really clear what they are, can you just give a quick explanation about what is an essential oil and what are they supposed to do for us?
Yeah, they are from plants, trees, bark, roots, and so they're natural. You don't have the addictions, the side effects that medications can have, and they're very potent. Well, I'm talking about quality oils. So doTERRA is the brand I know, and that's the only one I can speak for.
Sure.
But you want an oil that is not only pure, but you want them to be potent so that you can get that therapeutic benefit as well. And so to show how potent they are, 1 drop of peppermint oil, you would have to drink 28 cups of peppermint flavored tea to get that same effect.
Wow, that's
And
amazing.
I don't buy flavored tea because I don't know the sourcing of their oil.
Mhm.
So I buy organic tea and I will add my peppermint oil so that I know it's not contaminated, it's pure. And you cannot ingest all oils with doTERRA. If it says supplement on the bottle, that means you can. So you really need to understand, they're natural, but they're powerful.
Yes.
So that's why they don't want them sold in stores. If you go to a store and ask the clerk about an oil, they don't know.
No.
And so they want people like us to teach. And so, people use them for massages, for they diffuse, like I have mine going in the background. Um, they're multi-purposeful. You can take some of them internally. You can, of course, topically, some of them,
Mhm.
and then aromatically. So there's 3 different ways. Um, and so this woman was talking about an essential oil protocol to support your metabolism and so forth. So I learned there were oils that could help with that. Um, and I'm very fiercely independent. So knowing that I could use these oils like medicine and keep me out of that doctor's office that just wants me on medicine, that I was all over that.
Mhm.
It didn't
We
intimidate me.
That's good. We do need to clarify though. This is they that essential oils do not cure
No, they are
anything.
not cures. No,
They're
thank you.
they're support
They're
for
natural
your
and they support you because your body knows what to do with it because they
exactly.
are natural. No, they are
Mhm.
not cures. And I will say too, I was avoiding the type 2 diabetes without the oils
Mhm.
with lifestyle changes. But the oils up leveled my health. And I no longer have migraines. I have maybe one every 2 years and it's not ER worthy. And I can tell you what the trigger is, whereas before I was at the whim of, I never knew. I no longer take, obviously, a sleep med because that's what
Sure.
got me in the door there.
Right.
If I eat right, I don't need the oils for digestive issues.
Mhm.
But when I do have something I shouldn't, that does not love me back, I don't have to go to the Tums or the Rolaids or the whatever. I have the oils that are not going to compound the problem by adding the chemicals. So no, they do not cure anything. They just work in connection with your body.
Mhm. I think that's such an important thing because it's not something we're taught when we're young. And and in defense of the medical field, they're taught a certain thing, especially here, Western medicine compared to Eastern medicine. They're taught a certain thing, and it's not that they're not open to new things, even though it's ancient, so many of these things. They just don't have the capacity to bring that one more thing. At least your standard doctors, your functional medicine doctors and your naturopath doctors. Obviously this is a big part of their practice. So I do think it's important to kind of talk about the different types of doctors real quick. Your traditional doctors, they do a certain thing, they've been taught a certain way. Same with our functional medicine and holistic naturopaths, they've been taught something very different, even though some of them may have a medical background. My functional medicine doctor here was trained. She trained at one of the better hospitals in medicine, but she also realized as she was going through that there were just things that didn't sit well with her. And so she then became a functional medicine doctor, which we've mentioned before. They look for the root cause. So what's causing the migraine as opposed to here, this is going to get rid of the migraine.
Right, right. Yeah. And I think that's when you understand metabolic health, there's 5 markers that you need to watch out for. And if you have 3 of the 5, you're in trouble. And so what I've realized in hindsight is all those things that I was addressing, the sleep, the loneliness of trying to figure it out on my own. When I became a wellness advocate with doTERRA, I had a family. I had a team. I had people like-minded that were supporting this path versus fighting it and being condescending. And so that was huge. Your social wellness, you need that connect. We're humans, that's social wellness, that's important. But I will say one of the missing pieces, which I did learn later, is I didn't understand nutrition younger. I equated, because of my background with my family, I equated being overweight with being sick. And food was the enemy because that's what made them overweight, which is what made them sick. And so if you view food as the enemy, that is not, that's not healthy. And so, I could have really done some damage younger, but fortunately I was always purpose driven. So I didn't have other things that were weighing me down and making me doubt things. I was a travel agent out of high school. I loved my life. I was just obsessed with not getting overweight. And so, but because I was fulfilled career-wise and other ways, that didn't take me down that anorexic or any other path. But it certainly could have.
Absolutely.
And but it took me a long time to understand, and again, that's all part of it. doTERRA has always been ahead of the curve when it comes to products and so forth. So 3 years ago, I believe, they came out with a whole metabolic health system called MetaPower. That was way before we started hearing that buzzword, metabolic health. And I truly felt like they were in my head thinking, what do the people Becky wants to help the most? What do they need? And it was like, it was there. So can you avoid a diagnosis like that despite your genes without that support? Absolutely. I did it. But it sure would have been easier if I'd had some other tools and a community that would support me in that. And so that's another thing that I'm so excited about, that they were so ahead of the curve. So as they're sharing what this product does, I'm learning and I'm understanding nutrition better. And I can then share that knowledge with other people. And it's just interesting how those 5 pillars, the things you have to watch out for the metabolic health.
Please share them. Please share them.
Well, your the numbers you need to be aware of are your triglycerides, your HDL, your blood pressure, your blood sugar, and your waist circumference. So if you think about those 5 things, I was probably unhealthily obsessed with the weight circumference, but that served me in the end. Of course, the blood sugar issue, I was very proactive. And because I didn't have the weight and so forth, the blood pressure was not an issue. And I wasn't on medications, which can cause the blood pressure.
Right.
So I was addressing those things without understanding how it was going to serve me. And then the obstacles that get in your way are sleep, stress, of course, weight, your inferior supplements, and I think there was one other thing. So it was like I inadvertently addressed all of those things on my journey. And that is why I feel at 66, I can say with conviction, I am healthier now than at 36.
That's fantastic.
Because I understand nutrition now. I don't know everything, but I understand it. Food is not the
And I
enemy.
think you also understand how you understand it, but you also understand how it works for you. And I think that's really important. We mentioned before, we're all individuals. And so everything needs to be tweaked for each person. And nutrition, yes, if we know the basics of nutrition, which I always talk about, eat real food. You mentioned that earlier. That's where we start.
Yeah.
And all of these things, like we have, it is a journey, life's a journey. It's not about the destination. That's, and it's about the quality of life that we're living, that longevity piece that I think is so important for people to remember. Yeah, there are always obstacles, but there are ways to combat those obstacles. And I'm so glad that at this stage, you've figured those out. You've got the education and the information you need, and you're sharing it. So with that, I do want to bring something up, because I know you have an upcoming book that maybe reveals some secrets for thriving at any age, regardless of genetic background, which is a big part of why you've been on this journey. So without giving away too much, can you just tell us a little bit about the book?
Well, I'm writing it for people who are sick and tired of being sick and tired. They have been told so many times that's your genes, that's in your family, so you just have to deal with it. They just have no hope. and they're also alone. And so all the things I dealt with as well. And so the book is to take you on that sort of the journey we talked a little bit about today, but on that journey of what is holistic health, number one, and why do I feel it's optimal. And so I've decided on 5 pillars of wellness. There are more, many more, but I don't want the book to be, huge. So I just picked 5. And then other chapters are about what is connected to that: habits, uh, longevity, epigenetics, those kind of things. And one of the big pieces, which I hope came across today, is you need to be your own health advocate. If you are passive, and if you are not a learner or as tenacious like me, get someone like me in your corner. I will gladly go to someone's doctor's appointment with them. I will gladly help them navigate. And that's what I hope the book does too, is it's sort of like me there, helping over their shoulder, but it's overwhelming. It is a lot. And there's so much contradictory information out there. Eat plants, don't eat plants, drink a lot of water, don't, you got to have 8 hours sleep. No, you don't. I mean, there's people that everything imaginable is argued on social media, all the platforms. But
you're speaking to the choir on that one. Don't I know it?
Yeah. And I think it's helpful to have, to hear these different things, but you also need to sort of have some absolutes in place. Eat real food. I mean, like you said, that's number one. If you just do that, your health is going to improve.
Absolutely.
And so that I don't think can be debated. So that's one given that we all need to take up. But I do feel this book is not about statistics. It's not about the science. It's a layperson's guide to what actually is holistic health. Why should I care? And what do I do? How do I even go about it? So I just hope it's sort of a roadmap for people. They can jump in and out where they want to focus, and but know everything's connected. That's the key thing. It's not whack-a-mole, just treating symptoms. And the thing is, the whole nutritional thing, I've sort of I've come full circle to a place I never dreamt I'd be, as far as eating animal-based, and never dreamt that would be me, but my body loves it. And so if you are thriving on what you're doing, that's great. You don't have to listen to you or me. But if you're struggling, and I believe it's less than 7% of the United States population is metabolically healthy, less than 7%. So most of us are struggling. So if what you're doing is not working, why would you not be open to trying something different? But the biggest message in my book is there is no magic pill. You cannot, it is not going to work. There is a price for every piece of magic. And you get to choose your heart. You get to choose whether you're going to take that pill. I'm not against medication. I'm not against, a lot of times we've dug the hole so deep, we need medication to get a baseline, to get stable.
Yeah. I agree. And medicine absolutely has its place.
Yes,
my husband's a doctor.
absolutely.
I have to believe that. And I'm very fortunate because I have kind of my a foot in each uh bucket, maybe, the medical world, but also the holistic world. So I think it's important to note, as you're saying, that, there, you have to be, as a coach and as a health advocate, we have to meet people where they are. And
Yes.
that's really what we're trying to do here, with our conversation, with your new book, with my books that I have and the new one that I'm writing, but we'll get to
Ooh.
that another time. So basically, just to wrap up, because we've got to wrap up, um, essential oils have boosted your health, but most importantly, have really set a foundation for longevity, quality of life for you. For somebody listening, what is that first step for them to take? Your last thoughts.
Well, you have the first step is deciding, are you worthy of great health? Because let's face it, a lot of us have self-worth issues. And that is part of how we stay stuck is we're going to focus again, let's the easier, more recognizable thing is wait. Let's focus. Okay, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Great. But if you have not done the work on your emotional health, if you have not healed those scars, if you have not dealt with those limiting beliefs, you are going to sabotage yourself every single time. So if you have food addiction, which most of us do because of the crap in our food, if you have food addiction, get help. There is help out there. There's all sorts of non-invasive modalities that will address emotional trauma and addiction. And you do not have, it's a sign of strength to get help on that.
Absolutely.
And so to me, emotional wellness, which we haven't even touched on, another
Next time.
podcast, and the oils definitely can support you in that as well. That is one of the hardest things I've ever done was address those emotional scars that, were sort of keeping me stuck.
Mhm.
And it's hard. It's gut wrenching to dig up those things.
Mhm.
But and again, and I'm not talking, I never went to a therapist. I'm not saying you shouldn't or that they're not good. I just had enough people in my networking world, in my circle, that could help me with other modalities, that like emotion code, body code, those kind of things. That's what I'm drawn to. So I would seek them out and have sessions, and we would peel away those layers and find things. I was like, I was 6. How would I have known that? So that's probably a little woo woo for some people, but however you do it, however you approach it, it could just be the book, You Can Heal Yourself. Louise Hay wrote that.
Mhm.
She has a journal
Yep.
that goes with it. I did that too. It could be something that simple. Reading that book and answering those questions, those painful questions. And but it's you again, you get to choose your hard. Deal with it or don't. And if you don't, then your hard is going to be sabotaging yourself all the time, being miserable and unhappy. And I don't want that for anybody. It's just not, we're not meant to live that way.
No, I would
So
agree.
that would be, you have to first decide you are worthy of great health.
On that note, yes, I do think we've got another podcast down the road that we're going to have to do. Rebecca, tell people how they can find you.
Across the board under the Rebecca Russell on social media. And I write a blog that sort of expands on a lot of what we're doing, Rebecca at RebeccaRussell.com. The blog is feature should be up in a month or so. But writing is the first love of mine. And I just feel compelled to share what has helped me with other people and just hope it gives them hope.
I love it. I'll make sure that all of that information gets into the show notes. Thank you, Rebecca, for being here today and for sharing so much great information, your story, your background, and how that really can help so many people on their journey as well. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We will be here next time. We'll see you on next Wednesday. Till then, I leave you with my favorite phrase, healthy living, happy life. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.